welcome to today's Value Talk. And without delaying, I'll just briefly introduce Colonel KPM Das. Colonel KPM Das is from the Corps of Signals, and he commanded 54 Depth Signal Regiment, same as mine. In fact, I commanded the same regiment which he commanded, and he has been a mentor to myself, and he was one of the very few officers who actually responded very positively when I was trying to make a transition, and he helped me a lot during my successful transition. Sir has, to his credit, are uh, cannot be matched. Actually, he has had a very successful tenure both in army as well as corporate sector. In army, he successfully commanded the unit, and thereafter he took PMR while he was nominated for high command, but he chose to go the other way and explore the other side of the fence. He has been in persistent system. He was in persistent system with Mindtree, and then in Cisco at a very senior leadership position. And he is also involved in policy with policy making bodies at senior level. Sir is a keen marathoner, and also he has been addressing veterans. He has been helping veterans in successful transition since a very long time, and there can be no better speaker than him to be on Value Talks for this particular topic, and it is very close to his heart as well. So welcome, sir. Welcome to Value Talk.
Thank you, Manish. And firstly, I can't tell you how delighted I am to be part of this group. I've been doing similar talks, but mostly informal. I'm glad to be part of a platform where you have already some kind of momentum already going on, and happy to chip in. On a lighter note, I've been a fifth enclosure type all through my academy. Yeah, so don't read too much into that marathoner bit. Yes, mind, body, and soul, all three need to be very sharp when you're in CV Street. I figured that out. You are only as good as yesterday as far as your relevance is concerned. More about that later. Yeah. So, Manish, what I'll do is I'll take just about maybe 20 minutes max, and thereafter we have questions, right?
Right.
So I'm going to be very, very candid here, right? Some of you can challenge me on why I said what I said. You can make notes, and you can challenge me on why I said what I said, right?
Sir, would you like to just, though we have already discussed, would you like me to repeat what is the kind of takeaway the officers are expecting from this talk?
Yeah, that'd be great. Good start. Go ahead.
Right, sir. So, sir, we, as I already told you, we have people who are short service commission. Then we have people who are in 15, 20 years of bracket planning for PMR. There are some people who are in nearing 20, and they are planning their transition. And there are people, very few though, who have done their full service almost, and they are also planning a transition to corporate sector. Now, so the common question, because after this I will not interrupt you, the common questions, the common confusion which people keep having, one is that infantry and artillery and armored and people from the core combat arms, I have been debating with them. They say that they are GD, which I don't agree to, and I have been fighting with them on this. It is a perceived feeling that they have lesser opportunities compared to the technical people. And then secondly, most of the people who come out, they go for without thinking. They go for PMP, they go for CPP, they go for Lean, Six Sigma, Black Belt, Green Belt, all these courses without giving due diligence to what they actually want to do. And so officer who's coming after 25 years of service, and then he's going for PMP, and the PMP people who are actually sitting with him in the training are actually 4, 5, 6 years old, those youngsters. So the relevance of these certifications at what level for whom? And sir, the question of MBA, online or offline or distance learning, and if offline regular MBA, then from where? So these are some of the very, and then how to choose what should I go for? How to choose a domain? So which is of course this can be a very longish thing, but yes, sir, with your experience, I'm sure you would be able to touch upon these. These are the takeaways that people are looking at.
Okay, sure. I think we are on the same page. Okay, so no issues there. But I'll still bring in my own,
Sure, sir.
my set of thoughts. Firstly, to begin with, I want to put a disclaimer. Okay, uh, I'm 53rd NDA, which makes me 64 and a half. I'm the one of the youngest in my course, 64 and a half years old. So a lot of what I say, I'm not sure whether it is relevant. So please keep some salt with you, right? Have a pinch once in a while. But what I'll share are nuggets of wisdom from what I've gone through. So as of date, starting from 6th of January 1975 till now, I'm still active. I'm at work. This is my 47th year, and I'm still feeling like a 20-year-old. Okay, after commission, and I'll tell you the reasons why. Okay, so we'll come to that. So let me begin now. Right, one is, and I want that to be done first. I want to remove cobwebs from your minds if there are any. Yeah. Now, we've been brought up in a very structured, linear, deterministic organization, right? Right. So when you join as a second lieutenant in our time, now as a lieutenant, and so on, there's pretty much a path which has been worked out fairly well, right? And how do you know that? You go to a unit, you have people across, and over a drink, they tell you the stories, right? Someone has done JC, someone has done senior command, and so on. And then you get a sense. The negative part of it is, right from academy, there is some kind of straitjacketing that is done in our minds. Artillery, infantry, you know. So if it's an infantryman, then you know these are the given characteristics, and so on. While most of them are positive, some of them actually hold you back. You know, they really hold you back. So my first statement is to say that the limits of a mind is within your control. It is internally under your control. You know, there are things not in your control. You may go for an interview, not make it. You may not, get enough people networked. But what is in your mind is a complete open mind on willingness to learn anything. I'll give you an example. I work in a company called Cisco. It's a blue chip company. I also lead the veterans community in India. In the US, there are 1,000 veterans in Cisco, 1,000. Okay. Now, in these 1,000, I was under the impression they would be from Signals, assuming that Cisco is we all know Cisco is a high-tech company. Can you believe it? The best of the lot are from Marines. And when I mean Marines, not technical. These are Marines, in the front line. And over time, I realized the biggest difference is those guys they just remove their cobwebs. Nothing holds them back. People challenge each other in groups. And you end up having a situation where people learn, they're curious, they ask questions all the time, and they challenge each other day in and day out. Of course, they are learning, right? So with the result that what happens is the culture, the ecosystem in the industry itself has become mature. The good news is India is on its way to get there. There was a time when Tata's, L&T, Mahindra and all would hire people. No one else would hire for this, right? In worthwhile positions. Let me put it that way. Yeah. And the reason is this. The reason is both the service people and the industry were not mature enough. We have now reached a stage where Kulmeet Bawa is heading SAP for Asia Pacific. And I can give you other examples. Kulmeet Bawa is a cavalryman. He's been only inside a tank till he left. See where he is now. I don't know how many of you know him. Yeah. So that is point number one. Point number two is, you bring a lot of value to the table, right? Some of the one question that people ask when you have an interview is, what do you bring to the table, right? And most of the time they are talking of hard stuff. Hard stuff, for example, is how do you wire a network? Hard stuff is how do you run a mechanical transport fleet? Hard stuff is how do you run a warehouse in supply chain? These are hard stuff. But what you bring, irrespective of your background, is a very strong work ethic. You bring discipline, you persevere, and you're very execution oriented. You know that small little book we used to carry, and tick, 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 and you can't sleep till it's all ticked. That's the kind of stuff. You bring integrity, top class, and the ability to do something called follow up and follow through. And this is a big difference. I don't know how many of you know. Following up is the easiest thing to do. That is to pick up the thing and see if it has been done. Follow through is carrying it on till it is executed. Now, this is very unique to my mind among in the service community. You're very structured, you're goal oriented, you're process oriented, and fundamentally, there is a sense of problem solving. So every time you go to the 2IC, he says, I don't care how you do it, but go do it, right? And that is when innovation kicks in. In summary, there are four areas that you should say you bring to the table. One is a very strong people orientation, right? And I can tell you, because in my first role, I had about 3 people in my team. And their peers were wondering why is this 44-year-old guy hanging out with 20 somethings all day? Yeah, because of your strong people orientation, you have empathy towards them, their family, everything. It's a strong one. The second is, we are fundamentally SOP driven in our mind. Everything is around procedure, method, all of that. And in today's services industry, and in India, the industry is 70% services. Services are foundationally process driven. So you bring a strong process culture, SLA, service level agreements, SOPs comes naturally. The third is technical ability. And here I go back to the armed service regiment corps that you belong to. Whatever be it, you bring very strong technical ability. It does not mean electronics or something like that. It means as a gunner, as a cavalryman, your technical ability is very sound, which means you have worked with equipment, whatever be that equipment. It could even be a 81 mortar. But in that mortar, you know the thing backwards. Kholna, jodna, everything, right? That is a very strong skill because that applies even for high-tech stuff. And the last, of course, is higher purpose. This ability to align to a higher purpose is, personally for me, it has helped me climb the ladder. There are times when somebody has to raise the hand and say, I'm going to do it. It's not my cup of tea, but I'll learn and I'll do it for you, right? Because organizations go through crises and things like that. In times like that, you bring something which is very unique, and that is the sense of this higher purpose. Yeah. So, this is the introduction that I want to give. Now the challenge is the second half, right? And the second half is about hard stuff. Whatever I spoke till now is soft stuff. Now we are talking about hard stuff. And this is where all of you, depending on whichever stream you're coming from, and I'll talk of the streams, you need to figure out, switch off the lights, look deep inside from the day you got to the academy, right? And your respective regiments and units and ships and, air bases. What are the 3-4 things that are hard stuff about you, right? It is very likely, and I have heard some people say from, some of the units who say, looking back, sir, I've done 15 years or 14 years. I'm finding it difficult to pull out these 3 things. That is the time you need to work with a mentor. And we'll talk of mentors later, how essential it is, right? And what is the role of a mentor here? Who will pick up those little nuggets in your career. And that is going to be a foundation on which you will decide which pathway to use, okay, in CV Street. pathway in CV Street. So coming to the streams, broadly, I know that there are three broad pools, like Manish just said. You have the short service, you have uh, people who retire prematurely, right? 20 years or something like that, and the people who do their full complement of service into their 50s. One of the things I have found is each of them are very different from each other. So when you hang out, please hang out within your stream, because there are a lot of things which apply to yourself which are common denominators. Yeah. Now, these three streams have different stakes in life, which is why when I talk to people, I do talk to a lot of people ring me up, right? I classify them differently. I apply a different approach for each. The reason is, for a short service officer, the whole life is at stake, entire life. You are young, you're doing a pivot from a very different career to another different career. You're pivoting really. And you have a young family or going to raise a family, and you have no pension, right? So, from a security envelope, you have a big challenge. The second is the premature one, which I call a half career option. That means you've done a great job. You've been a 2IC, you've been a CO or whatever. You've drawn satisfaction in service, full Monty, 18, 20 years. And now you're looking to build another career, right? Built on that. It's a different approach. And to my mind, if you prepare well, there are a lot of things you can do. The third is people who leave at the end of their service. There are opportunities, but it is not as, in the dynamics of today, it is not very easy. But you can work up. There are some roles, and we'll talk of it, that you could do. But fundamentally, if you have an option to continue in service by other options like re-employment, you must take it. Because at the end of the day, you first begin with the first question you ask when that something hits your stomach and says, यार मुझे छोड़ना है, man, मुझे जाना है, मुझे निकलना है. When that happens, you should know what made you ask that question or say that. Of course, your wife is involved, your spouse is involved, maybe even your elderly children are involved for other people. Because this is a key question you have to ask. What do you want from things? Is it like me? I wanted to write code. I wanted to write programs. Unfulfilled agenda. Or you think that you're not being, compensated enough. You want to do some big things. You want to, send your child to Harvard and so on, right? Money is an important factor. Third is this changing station every second, third year does not work with me anymore. Child in high school or a child who needs more attention, I need to leave. These are the things that, or you need to care for your family, right? So these are the things you have to ask yourself. And because once you take the plunge, you should not look back. I have met a few odd people saying, nahi mila to theek hai sir, I'll continue. No. Those people should not be on this call. Okay? And Manish, please correct me if I'm wrong, right? These are for people जिसने horizon पे रोशनी देखा है, देखने का उम्मीद है, and you go full Monty. Yeah? And believe me, it's such a long haul that the water will find its level. I can guarantee you, all 77 of you, minus 2, okay, which is me and Manish, 75 of you, 10 years from now, I'll talk to you. You will all be thoroughly successful people in your own way. I can guarantee you that, okay? Because you've taken a decision to pivot into a different direction, right? Now, you need to do two things at this pivot. One is all the stuff that you have deep inside, in your head, in your soul, in your body, plus gaps that you identify. Now we'll talk about gaps, how you fill in those gaps. That these together will complement, and then when you do a value proposition in an interview or in a covering letter or in your resume, these emerge, right? And together you are almost 360 degrees for that job description, right? I can tell you that I've seen resumes of a lot of people. There's a lot of potential to take off in different directions, right? You've done a tenure in a depot. You've done a tenure in a depot, but you've done only one tenure. You're not an ordnance guy. You're not a, uh, service corps guy. You're not a logistics guy from the Air Force. But you've done one role which is very powerfully around logistics. Good enough. That is the seed for you to build your resume. Align it. If there's a supply chain resume, you need to spin it. Don't worry about 4 pages, 3 pages, 2 pages, 1 page, but solid. That you have to interpret and translate into a language which is already there in the job description, right? Some companies may not write great job descriptions, but most companies today, they do write job descriptions. Read it, read it between the lines, right? And there are some more things you need to do before you go do something called research. I'll talk about that later, right? So much about the three streams, very different. Short service has a lot at stake. So very early in your short service, maybe year -1, even better year -2, you should be clear that this is the way I'm heading. Start doing things. Have a mentor. In fact, short service officers need more mentors. I mean, more mentoring, right? Because what mentors do is they're not people who know everything. They're the people who can bounce off all silly ideas, all questions that you have, and they will play the role of somebody who will try and answer the questions. Okay? Or you're in a fork in the road. Sir, I have this option and this option. Which do you think is stronger? What should I do? There's a lot of things. So one of the things I want to leave behind now is please find a mentor. If you've not done it till now, find now, right? Somebody with whom you're going to speak at least once a month in the initial stages, and towards the fag end before you leave, it should be as frequent as once a week, right? And a mentor, you should choose somebody who in your mind are connected with you, right? Committed to do that. So that is one. The second is this whole question about qualification versus experience versus certifications, right? Etc. Now, in this new age today, your MBA, your BTech, your MTech, I won't put law there. Law is a highly professional vertical skill, right? It's like being a doctor or a vet or a dentist. Yeah. But for the general purpose, which is MBA and engineers and all of that, remember it only counts very little. In many companies, your background in commerce or engineering or maybe economics, they form the foundation. That means it is an entry point for your resume. It is an entry point for some silly recruiter to run a AI program and figure out of 100 resumes, how do I choose 10 people? You got it, right? So to that extent, it is important. It is important to reflect your degrees, all of that. But what I would recommend to you that in your final stages, when I say year -2 onwards, okay, year -3 onwards, be very careful of what you do as additional qualifications. When I mean qualification, these are full-blown formal programs like MBA. My suggestion is do it from the best place you can. These days, even executive MBAs have value, but do it from the top class, top 10, top tier, premium. Do it from there and do it full Monty. That means not time pass. You really are going to be working on this full time. You will need the help of your company commander, unit commander, brigade commander, captain of the ship, your crew in the airbase. You may need his help because you need to tell him, boss, I'm doing it. But 9 to 5 and whatever are your tasks, you do not flag at all, right? Don't ever show that you are switching off. This I'm telling you because this happens. I've seen it happening. It's unfair. And I have rarely met people, I can tell you, I have rarely met people who have not succeeded in the services and have succeeded outside. When I mean success, it's not about rank or becoming a CEO or a captain. That's not success. When I mean success, if I ask that person's coursemate or the soldiers, sailors, airmen in that unit, ये बंदा कैसे था? And they said top class. That means you have succeeded, right? So don't worry too much about whether you are PSC or all of that, alpha and courses and all. Doesn't matter. That's not success. When I mean success, I mean somebody who's been a professional at your work. You normally find that they will all succeed outside because the thumb rules are pretty much the same. Yeah. So year -3 onwards, you need to have a plan. And that plan cannot be built on qualification. If the only exception is if you're doing it from a top class place. Yeah. So that is very, very important. Now coming to the second, which is around certifications. Be very choosy in certifications. There is good and bad of certificate. The good thing about certifications today is that recruiters and hiring managers are now taking notice of certifications. I'm now talking of the middle management hiring. I'm not talking of CXOs. I'm not talking of CEOs. I'm talking of middle management. At that level, certifications have started making a difference. The reason is the job content in many of these roles, including pharma, including logistics, including transportation, including tech, especially in tech. The dynamics are that have happened in such a way that many of these job roles are becoming short line. After 5 years, you don't find that job only. It's gone. It's pivoted to a different role. So certifications are value for money. They align with a particular pathway. For example, you've been an electrical officer in a submarine, right? You can pick up one or two certifications that you can do around networking, for example, or even around quality, right? But you need to work out those pathways. One of the things I notice, and be very careful, is this whole mob mentality of going after certifications. So you will find that people have time in some of these year -3 onwards. Some of you are lucky to have a lot of time in your hands because you get such appointments and you end up doing certificates of all kind, done work. Specifically choose what you want to do and go after those. The good thing is even facilities has got certifications today. By the way, facilities people are paid very well today in good companies because it requires an understanding of what is called building management systems, campus management systems, uh, deep understanding of electrical, mechanical, civil. There are certifications around it. And of all these functions, facilities is the most process oriented.
Sir, we have conducted two talks on facility management. We brought two senior people, sir.
Wonderful. The second is around security. From 20 years back to now, security is now in the big league. And I can tell you it can only become more and more. What is happening today is security has pivoted again as a role. It has moved from security to risk management. See the change? Risk management is a 360-degree view. Security is a very linear view. There are certifications in security which you can do. And I can tell you, it's like a song, you will be able to do it. It's very process oriented, all of that. And that will help you understand where security figures in risk. Risk also covers finance. It also covers cybersecurity, information security. It also covers brand reputation, for example. There are a lot of aspects. So my thought is, do not relegate security to the lowest level again. It is an area where if you are a technical person also or a logistics person, you can still build all of that. And there is a connect from risk to sustainability. Increasingly in large enterprises, when I say large, greater than 5,000, large enterprises today, there is a mandatory role called Chief Sustainability Officer or a Sustainability Officer. These are the people who are responsible to the board for one chapter in the annual report on sustainability, environment, safety, all of that stuff. So that's a whole area. There are certifications around it. There's a lot to read on it. There are YouTube videos on it. You can learn yourself. Those of you who are adventurous, break from the normal straitjacket, get into sustainability. Big companies need sustainability people, right? So then there are others around warehouse management. I don't have to talk about it, logistics, fleet logistics, and so on. I'm not talking about high tech. That's an area I come from, right? High tech is a lot simpler because the ask is very definite in high tech, and the reason is there is a set of skills that you need to have. You can learn. It doesn't matter whether you are an engineer or not an engineer. You can learn. An infantry officer can learn machine learning. Infantry officer can learn data science. Where there is too much of mathematics, you can move. You don't need to pick it up. But there are areas even in machine learning, AI, where anyone can fit in, right? The learning curve will be steep. Be prepared for that. But then we have done tougher things in life, right? This is nothing. Yeah. So that is an area where the job description will have definite keywords. It will say, should I have worked in data science on large databases? Or, and these are areas where sometimes certifications will fill in the gap of experience. See, the challenge we have in high tech is we don't have high tech experience. We don't have it at all. So how do you manage it? You manage it through very selective learning and certification. Learning through a lot of YouTube videos, Khan's Academy, Unacademy, everything through LinkedIn, etc. And do certifications. Many of these learnings end by giving you certain certificates, credit points. Use that. That's a way for high tech to go. I'm talking at high level. Someday, maybe next session, I can talk at a more deeper level on this technology part of it, right? But that's not the purpose today. So the key thing in the year -3 onwards, right? For a short service officer, maybe year -2 onwards, because you don't have that runway. You don't have so much of time. But I know a lot of prematurely retiring officers have a larger runway, because they make up the mind much earlier, right? Same is the case with people who are doing the full service. Yeah. There, you need to have something called a learning plan. So this is the summary of whatever I said so far. Build a learning plan, right? If you are very, you're a busy bee, you're willing to put in effort, you can have two pathways. You can simultaneously work on two pathways. One around, let's say, logistics, warehouse, all of that stuff. And the second around security, facilities, all of that stuff. That's up to you, right? But normally beyond two pathways is very difficult, right? And where do these pathways lead to? They lead you to build a resume, which is mapping image to the job description, which appears in portals, which appears in company websites, and so on. Yeah. Now coming to some of the finer things. Okay, let me talk about the finer things. One is about networking, right? I owe a lot of my success to networking. Okay, I'll give you an example. When I left the army, I left with a lot of positivity, and deep down, even now, an olive green guy to the core, right? I run my course group. I'm in touch. I have stayed in touch even with the army, and there are times when in business, I've leveraged those relationships. So one of the things in networking that you probably need to do is build a network of people with whom you can have a very free and frank conversation. These are people who have left earlier. These are people you have met up at places. These are people who are your relatives, some of them in CV Street. These are some of your friends who are your schoolmates, who are your college mates, etc. When I left, internet was not there. There's no chance. But today with WhatsApp groups, school groups, alumni groups, Vikaspuri group, every kind of groups are there. You will find people with whom you will find something in common. And I can tell you one thing is there is still pride among the civilian gentry to have one Fauji friend. Be that Fauji friend, right? So, but even when you go for a run, see if you can move with different people. Break out of your, at least year -3 onwards, break out of your straitjacket. Start getting into lateral kind of stuff, right? I leave it here. Uh, Collect their email IDs, collect their telephone numbers, right? If you have a good memory, all the more better, right? So I can do a session of this. Okay, this is very, very important. The second thing is where I found people wanting is there is no easy way to finding a job. And the reason is there are jobs plenty. I can tell you today, I am with 20 years almost in CV Street. There is a dearth of good people in CV Street. CV Street is in bad shape. I can tell you all that you hear, all fluffy stuff on the net and all that, LinkedIn. I can tell you half of it is all crap. When you compare it with service people, right? All CEOs, without exception, are always waiting for somebody to call them and say, "Sir, is there something for me?" Not HR, may not be HR. I hope none of you are from HR. HR is a very service-oriented organization. So the CEO is the right person. So wherever you get a chance, don't hesitate to reach out to the senior most guy. Give a cold call. I leave it to you how to find it on the web, right? All of them leave trails of their personalities on the web. After all, we are humans. We are proud of showing off. You will find something somewhere, the email ID, phone number, photograph, Facebook, etc. CEOs are, I have found what they will do is, of course, you need to tell a story. You need to spin a story, brother. You need to spin a story in the first one. And when you spin a story, you should be knowing about that company more than the CEO himself. How do you do that? Today, there's so much of branding, so much of website, so many PDFs, articles, downloads. So if I were to call up Tech Mahindra, Gurnani, CP Gurnani is the CEO. What I'll do is I'll go to a Mahindra website. I'll see what all they do, where are the areas, and a few bells will start ringing here. Okay, and read some newspaper articles. You'll see Tech Mahindra is going through this change. They are going to invest 10 million in some area, publicly known. Okay, so in your covering note, you will say, I understand you are, you're going to grow in this area. I think I can contribute. That guy will say, he'll send it to the right person and say, hey, can you chat with this guy? I've seen this happening. So I'm telling this out of conviction, right? And don't worry about senior, junior, colonel, major, captain, farak nahi padta hai. Leave your rank behind. Okay? There is no way that a brigadier or a major general or a lieutenant general gets more attention. The CEO means business. And there is a dearth of good people, what I told you. There's a dearth of good people in the market, right? The challenge for all of us is how do you make that first break? So give me that chance, like Oliver Twist said and Charles Dickens, give me that one chance. Because I know for sure, I have seen it. After a year or two, these guys are all eating out of the guy's hands, the service guy. To the extent that I have heard lots of people say, sir, I picked up this job as a project manager. After 3 months, I realized it is, it's a teddy bear's picnic for me. I think I made a mistake. I should have pitched for something higher, right? I know that's not a great thing to happen, but look at it positively, right? I just want to tell you that it is not a big deal. The big deal is breaking in, and for that, you need to prepare. So the headline of what I told you is research. Research about companies, research about people, research about issues that companies are going through, research about who in the leadership is doing what, right? So when you go on the interview or when you write the covering letter is like your first interview. That guy should stand up, right? You heard of people who make video resumes, right? One or two guys. Crazy guys. But their aim was to take attention. So you need to, your covering note or your 3 minutes of call that you get, you ring up the secretary to the CEO and the CEO says, the secretary says, first thing secretary will say, who are you? right? You say you are from the army. Okay, so half the battle won. You say, I would like to, I need 5 minutes of the CEO. She said, what's it about? He says, no, no, ma'am, no, sir. I need to talk to him. This is about something that I can do for Infosys or Wipro or Mahindra. It may not work. It may not work. What the hell, yeah? Does it matter? When you're making 100 calls like this, I'm telling you, you need to make 100 calls like this. And this is where I come to what is called the statistics of finding a job. You contact 100 people, very likely only 30 will respond to you. Out of those 30, the people who will genuinely show interest will be about 15. Out of those who show interest in you, right, about 10 of them will get back and set up a meeting. Out of those who set up, 6 of them will be good meetings. 4 will be terrible meetings. Out of 6 which will hit, you'll probably get 2 or 3 offers, right? Now, I know I have drawn to an extreme, but I rather paint an extreme picture. Why I'm saying this is you need to do a lot of homework. You need to buy a long book or keep an Excel sheet and start researching on companies. I can tell you there are companies out there wanting people like you, people like Amitabh Bharadwaj, Ved Khatana, everybody. How do you find that? And it doesn't come easy. It doesn't happen. Put it on Naukri, put it on Monster, send it to a few of your friends. Good, it's good. But that's not enough. You need to build a complete plan, which is around, it is like making the marketing plan in a company. You need to go with a definite purpose. Those of you who are interested, I can, think of a few things in the next session, right? Put effort on research.
Sure,
The,
sir.
yeah. The third is, how do you evangelize yourself? Now, this is now coming closer to the final thing, which is the resume. You need to evangelize yourself. Evangelizing means not in a negative sense, but essentially telling a story about yourself, about Padma Kumar. This is Padma Kumar. This is what this guy is made of, right? Now, this cannot be told in 4 pages. If it is in 4 pages, you might as well give up. Don't do it. Don't do anything. Go to sleep. It has to. It has to begin with. It can begin with 4 pages, but uska jo kunji hai na, kunji has to come in 1 page. Okay. This I learned from a person called General Shami Mehta. I was in his secretariat at one time. I was an MO. And that time he told me, he said, when you make a presentation for 1 hour, you never know what the big chief will say. He'll say, yeah, I have only 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Or sometimes he say, I'm going for a walk for 5 minutes. Tell me your problem. That ability of kungifying yourself as a brand, as a product, be prepared to do it in half a page, 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, 4 page. Practice it. You have to work very hard, brother. No other way. And sister, sorry. Okay. There is no other way. You have to prepare, keep iterating your resume, every word, measure every word, every sentence, action orientation, outcome orientation. I was GOC sub area. Doesn't damn matter, right? But to say that I increase the army school subscription from 500 to 7,000, solid stuff. Not many can do that. I've done it. No one else can do it. I can do it. That's the story. You need to build a resume, and this resume is a continuous process. ये नहीं कि एक बार बन गया और folder में डाल दिया, keep sending. No. I know people in CV Street, middle management, who keep looking at resume every day. थोड़ा इधर sharp कर दिया, इधर add कर दिया, इधर कम कर दिया. And when you do that, you realize that there are gaps you need to fill. That's the beauty about doing these iterations, right? It tells you that. And while you're doing that, you're also having conversations with people on interviews. Maybe you're doing interviews. Each interview is a learning by itself. You have to come back, look at your resume. Yeah, galat kya hua? Where did I miss? Right? And then you realize you are not even fit for that role. anywhere near. So you went for the wrong role. That's a learning, right? So resume writing is an art. It is not static. It is dynamic. And Manish, if you're interested, I'll have one of the Cisco people conduct a session. We did
Sure,
that
sir.
for we did that for the Indian Navy recently. We'll do that, right?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So the headline of what I told you is about preparing your resume, preparing for the interview, preparing for conversations, right? You know that there is something happening in Leela Gurgaon, right? Maybe some fashion show, okay? But you figured out some CV Street CEOs are coming. यार क्या कर रहे हो घर में बैठ के जाओ यार, have a drink there, rub shoulder, look for that guy, call him to a corner, impress that guy, right? Believe me, there is again dearth of good people in CV Street. Anyway, people are looking for solid people with whom they can have conversations. So you need to build that persona, that gravitas, to have a conversation for at least 5 to 7 minutes on something, right? And most of these go around, hey, what are you doing, man? Okay. It seems like a simple question. No, it is not a simple question. Or he'll say, what do you wish to do? Why are you leaving? Right? And what else do you do? What else do you do? Very important question. Yeah. So I don't have answers. I'm just trying to set you thinking on how conversations are important. And because you want conversations, go where you can. This evening's meeting, right? Give it a shot. I know a lot of you will say, "यार ये तो बेकार का बात करके चला गया." Wasted my 1 hour on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening.
Also.
Don't do that. You never know. You know, in Hindi there's a saying, "न जाने किस बेस में नारायण पैसा है." न जाने किस बेस में नारायण पैसा है. You got the point, right? Which means you don't know where opportunities will come up. They'll just come and they'll go. Maybe you have the right time to grab it. Yeah. And the last thing I want to talk about is compensation versus role versus pathway. People who are short service officers have, to my mind, at least 25 years of working life left, right? So you have a runway to reach that top speed, so to say, right, of 250 kilometers an hour, right? And believe me, what happens at that level is, if you have been, a person gifted with 4G values, very prudent with money, very careful about how you spend, where you spend, you have savings which actually will keep accruing and compounding, that by the time you finish 20 years, that money is good enough for you to do anything after that, right? So therefore, don't get carried away by compensation alone. I say that even to premature retirement people, because you still have 20 years left. Don't get carried away by compensation. But at the same time, if compensation comes up in your first meeting with somebody, that means you're on the wrong meeting. Let's say you're on somebody's talking to you, okay, and he's not an HR guy, okay, or even if he's an HR guy, if one of the first questions is what are you expecting, there's a problem, man. Not a great place to go. Not a great place to go. Compensation is important, but it should be at the tail end of your conversation. Yeah. So that is one. The second thing about compensation is it is very closely linked to the role. In many companies, they have a minimum and a maximum for roles, right? So rather than looking at compensation, I would suggest you look for roles, right? What role it is. Now, role is actually orthogonal. That means one direction, it is how senior you are. At the other direction, it is how skilled is that role. The higher the skill required in the role, the more they are willing to pay. And even if you start junior, it is good enough. That means the role may be lower, but because it is high skill, they are willing to pay you more, right? So this is a question that I cannot answer, right? Unless one or two of you already have offers, call me up and say option A, option B, option C. I might be able to guide you. But otherwise, there's no ready answer here. You need to see what what drives you, right? My suggestion to you, what I tell people, first 2 years after you leave, year plus one and year plus two, be prepared to treat it like a field posting or a posting at sea or posting in one of the forward air bases. Man, right of those 2 years from a comfort point of view, right? It really works because you are able to bring so much energy and so much momentum to the role that it you take off in a great direction. Yeah. So there is a bit of balancing offsets that you need to do, compensation versus role versus location, how much of discomfort. I'll be away from family, maybe shuttling once a month and meeting them. But we've done this, right? We've done this all along. All our life we've been doing it, right? Unless you have a medical reason or a specific reason why you come into it, I clearly would rate role, compensation in that order, right? Role first, very important. Yeah. So in short, this is all I have. Of course, one other thing I want to add, one challenge you have is, should I join a small company, medium company, or large? Small less than 1,000 according to me, medium 1,000 to 5,000, large 5,000 and more. I always suggest that you need to see what that role is, right? In a small company, you could be very close to the leadership. Maybe you're in the leadership team. In the medium, you're probably 2 rungs below. In the large, you may be lost in the forest. You need to figure out where you want to be. Yeah. These are options that come before, and you need to make a decision on that. Manish, I'll stop here.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. I mean, it was, in fact, I was also making notes, and you will be glad to know, sir, that quite a few of the things which you mentioned, like you have to tell a story, you have to spin a story, and if somebody asks you, suppose you go to an event and you happen to meet somebody, and he asks you, "What are you doing? What do you do? Or what else you do?" So we have made some short videos around that. We have not given the answer, but the technique to answer. How that you should be ready once you have already made up your mind to come out, then you should be ready with these kind of things. If you have just what people generally call as elevator pitch, so these kind of videos also, sir, we have made, and about networking also. But it was so good to hear everything from you.
You gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down.